ensuring your business has the capacity to invest in new areas without jeopardizing the quality of your product or the services in that core market, or run small tests to determine what that new customer segment might need or want from your brands.
Hello, and welcome to The Marketing Architects, a research-first podcast dedicated to answering your toughest marketing questions. I'm Elena Hingle. Oh, no, not my name anymore. I'm Elena Jasper. I run the marketing team here at Marketing Architects, and I'm joined by my co-hosts, Angela Voss, the CEO of Marketing Architects, and Rob DeMars, the Chief Product Architect of Misfits and Machines.
Hello, Elena.
Hello.
Hello. We're back with our thoughts on some recent marketing news, always trying to root our opinions in data, research, and what drives business results. Today, we're covering something that always gets a strong reaction when we talk about it on the show, so we thought we'd give it its own episode. And that topic is reach. We're going to talk about why reach is important, why aren't more marketers bought into the idea of reach driving growth, and how might you apply reach principles to your campaigns without breaking the bank. I was inspired to suggest this subject of reach now because of a speech that Mark Pritchard gave at a recent A&A media conference, and it went a little bit viral. I found a great summary of the speech from Joseph Arthur for Performance Marketing World in an article titled P&G's Mark Pritchard on Using Media to Grow Markets. The only currency that matters is sales dollars. Pritchard rounded out his speech by talking about the importance of integrating reach, effectiveness, and efficiency in your advertising. So he started with reach, and he challenged traditional targeting methods. He questioned why demographics like women, ages 18 to 49, are still the norm for CPG products when, obviously, people outside of these groups also buy and use these products. Then he moved on to effectiveness. He underscored the significance of in-market testing. He highlights how brands like Downy test different campaigns in various markets to find the most effective strategies to boost sales. And finally, he spoke about efficiency. This was particularly in the context of programmatic media. He stressed that efficiency isn't just about cutting costs, but also about optimizing ad spend to achieve profitable returns. By refining the media supply chain and using cross-media measurement, brands can avoid redundancy in their advertising and enhance overall efficiency. And he said something in particular that I really liked, so I'll just quote directly from him. The most important part of marketing is market. Market matters. Growing markets is the best kind of growth because it creates business versus taking business from others. And of course, in order to grow your market, you need that key ingredient that he started with, which is reach. So, and Rob, Mark Pritchard, he's really a force in advertising, and he's got so many incredible speeches that we could talk about. But what did you think about this speech in particular?
This one struck with me. He's always inspirational, I would say. But I think for me, just the thing that comes through that we talk about a lot is just challenging traditional consumer targets is something that resonated. We talked quite a bit about how limiting targeting can be, which is why we like to embrace this mindset of core target, secondary target, tertiary audiences. And it's hard to grow a brand through a focus just on existing customers, just trying to get more out of them. So how do we start from this place of every impression could have value? How do you make it have value? Not all of those impressions have equal value necessarily, and therefore there are cost variables that come into play. But when we start from a place of, I'm only going to talk to 15% of all adult buyers, that's obviously limiting the growth, right? So it was the whole thing around women ages 18 to 49 for me. What about you, Rob?
To echo what you just said there, Ange, I was talking to Chuck Hengel, founder of Marketing Architects, the other day on this very topic. He said sometimes the more provocative question with targeting, especially through TV, is not who you're targeting. It's who aren't you targeting. As marketers, we can get so myopic about precision, but when you realize all the potential buyers you truly have, the more interesting question can sometimes be, who do you not want to reach?
We've talked about that a little bit, and just talking about our agency and our point of view on reach. And marketers, they always start in just trying to narrow in as much as possible. But, right, Rob, what if you start with everybody? And then how do you just take away the people that you really know you don't want to reach?
Absolutely. If you think about the development related to AI, might have been 5 years ago. Even if you were bought in on the idea, you go okay, is the same message going to resonate with a wider audience or different audience segments? But I think with development and technology, it starts to become more manageable to consume how this could really lead to growth in a scalable way.
I was talking to someone yesterday about the marketing effectiveness in the US, and I brought up, we're missing that. Who's the Byron Sharp of the US? It might be Mark Pritchard. That's my new theory. I think he might be he's what we've got, and he's pretty wonderful. But before we get too far into this discussion about reach, I had an idea for a Rob history lesson, which is probably pretty obvious. It's where does reach come from? And I truly don't know this. I don't know if this is even possible for a history lesson, but I thought we'd ask Rob to look into it. So Rob, talk to us. Where did reach come from?
Initially, marketing success was all about the sale, right? If your ad sold the product, you were golden. But as media spread its wings into newspaper, radio, and TV kind of entering the scene, marketers needed a snazzier new way to gauge success. And that's where reach strutted onto the stage, showing how many unique viewers caught a glimpse of an ad, right? With the advent of mass media, it didn't just become about selling products anymore. It was also about brand fame. Brands like Coca-Cola and Ford became household names, not just by sales alone, but by reaching millions through persistent and widespread advertising. The aim to be the talk of every town. As the marketing world got smarter, reach evolved. It wasn't enough to just hit those high numbers. Those numbers needed to make sense. For instance, the rise of targeted advertising meant that a skateboard ad aimed at teens might have a lower reach, but much higher impact than, say, if you were to have included, say, retirees in that particular media buy. The 1990s saw marketers perfecting the art of demographic slicing, ensuring ads reached the right eyes and the right ears. It wasn't just about who saw the ad, but who interacted with it. Really, by the early 2000s, Google and Facebook revolutionized how reach was understood with click-through rates and online engagement metrics. And now suddenly marketers could measure not just millions of views, but the quality and depth of viewer engagement. In today's digital age, reach encompasses a wide spectrum across social media, streaming platforms, and traditional media. Marketers now juggle reach across platforms like Instagram, where ads hit millions of viewers globally, and tailor strategies for maximum impact. Think geo-targeting and behavioral data to refine audience targeting. Reach today is about brands, big and small, figuring out where to spotlight their efforts in the crowded and ever-evolving media landscape. It's not just about spreading the word, it's about spreading it wisely.
I could tell that you used ChatGPT for part of that because ever evolving is one of ChatGPT's favorite words.
ChatGPT is a really good research assistant.
It is.
That's great, Rob. I was hoping you'd find out who came up with the word reach. Did you find anything about that? I tried to figure that out myself.
No, there was nothing out there that I could find about the actual person who kind of reached into the bag and said, let's call this reach. But whoever they were, they probably came up with the word frequency as well, right?
They have no idea how many LinkedIn arguments they've caused since.
There is a resurgence, though, don't you think? And we play in this space. Like, we have performance roots just with how we got started in radio, working in direct response. And so, like, we're big believers in call the phone number, scan the QR code, etc. Go to the website. And the measurement of all of that, of course, in a top of funnel channel is challenging, super important, doable. But I think back to marketing effectiveness in the United States and this love of digital and all things trackable, we perhaps swayed a little too far. We do care about that future sale. And how do we drive that sale if we don't have awareness with a broader audience? It's been around a long time, but I think has ebbed and flowed in terms of its power or weight, I guess, in terms of how marketers think.
Don't you think it's different by channel as well, just in terms of the importance of reach and the efficiency of it? Like with television, you have that ability to cast those really wide nets where bringing other people along for the ride makes sense, where it might not as much on, say, Instagram.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've said this before, right? Every channel has a superpower. It's just, what is it? Don't try to use every channel in the same exact way. But I think you only have a handful of channels potentially that have really strong both branding, build mental availability through reach, and ability to drive sales activation. Not every channel can do that. I think TV does it really well.
One last thing I'd add. It's funny how sometimes reach isn't synonymous with results, but if you asked Matt Hultgren, he would probably say if your goal is sales, having as much efficient reach as possible is actually going to deliver you more of a response. So funny how that goes. All right, let's move on. I wanted to dive right into objections. We've covered them a little bit already, but this tends to be a controversial topic. We had Peter Weinberg on the show about a month or so ago, and he used to do a lot of research for the B2B Institute at LinkedIn. We asked him, like, what piece of research tends to cause the most controversy? And I'm pretty sure that what he said was it was this like targeting versus reach discussion. So it's a hot topic. The most common objection that I hear from marketers is that too much reach, it just creates waste. It's not worth it. If you can use targeting tools and find that ideal customer when they're ready to buy, it's more cost effective. It leads to a better ROI. I've even seen marketers say things like, I'd love to have reach. I'd love to reach everybody, but I can't afford it. So Ange, what would you say to that objection?
Yeah, I remember in that conversation, we talked about how we've employed the term positive spill. I think he said he was going to try to steal that from us. But yeah, I mean, I think that mindset fails to account for a couple of things. First, there's the 95-5 rule, right? Which posits that 95% of your future sales will come from just 5% of your current audience. And those numbers, of course, will fluctuate based on what you're trying to sell and your target audience. But this insight is really important in understanding how to play the long game in marketing and the importance of playing the long game in marketing. If we're only solely focusing on immediate, narrow target objectives, brands are going to miss out on that broader audience that could become tomorrow's customers. So broad reach strategies are essential, not just for capturing immediate sales, but also for building longer term relationships with that wider audience that can really drive that sustained growth. I think too, the influence of, like I mentioned before, secondary and tertiary targets in our buying decisions often goes unrecognized or undervalued. These are people that might not be direct customers, but they influence decision makers. You could have, back to your skateboard example, a child might influence a parent's choice of a skateboard or cereal, or an employee might sway their company's software purchases. And so by expanding reach, you capture these influential groups, and that amplifies your brand's impact beyond that immediate buyer. And then I think lastly, the cost to hyper target can just be so prohibitively high. And so we're like, there's this waste mentality to not hyper targeting, but that cost can be so prohibitively high that this precise targeting it has its benefits, but the expense of identifying and reaching out to a narrow audience can just quickly outweigh those advantages, especially when the cost doesn't proportionately translate into a higher ROI. So those are just some thoughts, I guess, that come to mind.
The cost one is funny because we talk about reach a lot as an agency, because I think we believe that there's not enough knowledge or maybe appreciation of reach, and there's some misunderstandings about it. And I don't know if this is an analogy or a metaphor. I always get them mixed up. But we say, would you rather pay LeBron James to shoot one free throw or Rob to shoot 25? And it's the same price. Who's going to make more baskets? Now,
I've played a pretty mean round of pig in the past.
Oh, yeah.
So I think I could make one.
We need you to make two. Can you make two? Because LeBron's going to make his one.
That's true. What did I get? 25 chances?
Yeah.
Is that what you said? Oh yeah. Yeah. I think I can do two.
Cool.
Yeah. It is like playoffs time. We might have to take a video of this and post it and see actually how many baskets would it take.
I'd first have to find a basketball, and then I'd have to find a hoop. But once I find those two things, yes, we'll get a video.
But anyways, we've defended reach so much as an agency that we've come up with stories like that to try to get the point across. But sometimes I think when we talk about reach, we get misunderstood and it comes off like we're just anti-targeting and we never want you to target. And that's not true. Like, we use targeting as an agency. So Ange, how should a brand decide if they should focus on a broad audience, reach versus, all right, I'm going to reach less people. It might be more expensive, but it's time to be more targeted.
The first thing is, what are you selling? How niche are you? I mean, we're talking about a skateboard and marketing a skateboard to the elderly. Generally, you could get grandma or grandpa to buy a skateboard for the grandson or granddaughter, but Mark Pritchard is selling toothpaste. So there's a big case for a really wide audience there. So I don't think anyone, including Mark, is saying that marketing should just flip the switch and target P2+, no holds barred, ROS, like run of sight, everyone's fair target. But expanding reach is really a phased approach. Everyone's trying to grow their brand. So at different phases, you're addressing different challenges. So some of the considerations, I guess, to consider would be number one, just financial health. Ensure you got the financial stability to withstand uncertainties associated with entering new markets. Do we have the KPIs in place already? Do we feel really strongly about our ability to deliver on the core target? Would be the first one. Another one might be just resource availability. Expanding into new markets or new customer segments requires resources, I think both financial and human. So ensuring your business has the capacity to invest in new areas without jeopardizing the quality of your product or the services in that core market, or run small tests to determine what that new customer segment might need or want from your brands. The message to grandma, we found this with Stuffies when we were marketing Stuffies, right? We originally went out, stuffed plush toy with 7 secret pockets, and we're like, duh, the audience is the kids, right? So DXD, Nickelodeon, let's go, all over the kid channels. That didn't work. Those were really expensive channels. And mom was there co-viewing, but she was doing whatever she was doing. She wasn't buying Stuffies and all that. So we ended up finding that the grandma target was better. And then I just think the scalability of your business. So your current systems, your processes, infrastructure, ensure that they can handle scaling up. If you're not ready to scale efficiently, we should probably focus on strengthening those areas first. Generally speaking, brands have way less total market share than they want. There's an ample room to grow versus you're a Heinz ketchup and you're like, geez, I've got 99% brand awareness and how am I going to grow? Then they might look to other methods.
So say you're brand and you're ready to expand. You have a smaller market. You're ready for more reach. One thing I thought we should talk about is when you begin to pursue reach, you should think about the quality of your reach. So Ange, I wanted to ask you, is there a way to measure the quality of reach, or what should marketers look out for? Because we know personally that high reach only works at the right price for most brands. And for some inventory, especially digital, low CPMs, which can give you more reach, could mean you aren't reaching the right people or sometimes even real people at all. So how do we avoid just chasing vanity metrics when we're pursuing quality reach?
Yeah, I think this is where performance marketers do have a leg up, because a great metric is sales, isn't it? Because we, of course, don't catch every TV viewer in market for our product or service right when they're ready to buy. Sales isn't the only metric that we should be looking at, but if we think that a secondary or a tertiary target has value at the right cost, then we should be able to, especially in the performance space, judge that. In theory, we can test that. Today with ACR and IP-based attribution, it's a lot easier to close the loop on that view to sale than it used to be. So that's one way. I think even brand markers, CPG brands have methods that they look to deploy to try to get some read on engagement is really the goal there, that you're wanting to ensure that if you're pushing impressions out to extended audiences, that in some way or shape, they're relevant to them.
But one thing I wanted to kind of circle back to, Rob, you mentioned like there's different channels are capable of different things when it comes to reach. So traditional TV and radio, they come to mind as channels that are great for reaching a broad audience with quality media. And I think that makes sense. But digital channels like Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, they have massive audiences too. So you have that potential to reach a lot of people there as well. But since marketers have access to more targeting tools, they tend to lean on those channels more for targeting and less for reach. And we're a television agency, and CTV is often seen as that digital version of TV. So Ange, how concerned are you that this same tendency to over-target has followed marketers into CTV?
I think you do have marketers looking at CTV, not everyone, but looking at CTV like another digital channel, which we would guide against, right? Unquestionably, the CTV space offers added targeting, added measurement capabilities, but more doesn't always mean better. Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, these are largely one-to-one delivery channels. And that's both advantageous and I would say disadvantageous in various ways in which you wouldn't just want to start to deploy those same tactics from digital over to CTV. One of the biggest differences that I think is not always the most obvious to marketers is that with CTV, I think a lot of times people just go streaming, OTT, CTV, whatever it is. Well, no, specifically with CTV, we're talking about a screen on a wall, often in a living room, with multiple viewers at one given time. And with account sharing, it's not often easy to know if you're actually delivering to the person or to the demographic that you intended to. So with CTV, we need to find new ways to ensure delivery is effective and, most importantly, drives that same meaningful impact that linear can. It's a powerful channel. So we're keeping in mind that each channel has its own superpowers. There are likely learnings that can help in all channels, but deploying a digital strategy over to CTV as a copy paste is likely going to lead to either failure, at the very least, I would say, failure to capture the full impact of a much bigger opportunity.
So, and you talked about how digital channels have that one-to-one relationship. A lot of marketers now, they're brought up buying on digital and creating creative that's more personalized. And I think they might actually find it harder then to go into a high-reach channel like TV and have to create something that can resonate with anybody who happens to be watching a basketball game and sees your commercial on air. So, Rob, one thing I wanted to ask you, when you're creating TV commercials, how much do you think about the fact that you're not going to be hitting someone one-to-one? You're going to be hitting people outside of your target. Does that change how you approach the creative? Or do you always start with that core customer?
I mean, you have to recognize TV's the largest stage for your brand, right? So it is a two-for game where you are absolutely creating that primary message strategy around the main core customer. But at the same time, you're reaching a wider audience. You're reaching company shareholders, company employees, future customers who might be too young today to be your customer, but will be your customer in 5 to 10 years. So it's important to incorporate universal appeals, humor, life experiences, widely understood challenges. It's important to maintain the interest of that wider audience. It's also an opportunity for brand consistency. How are you making sure that wider audience is still picking up on the essence of your brand so that down the road they can resonate with your brand assets as they continue to roll out? Also, cultural sensitivity. You could all of a sudden turn off a bunch of people who aren't even in your target audience, but they're creating a lot of chatter that is going to hurt your core target audience. So it's important to be, sensitive that way as well, and continue to look for feedback and adapting your creative all along the way. It's a conversation, and just making sure that you're leaning into your target audience, but you're also respecting and adapting your message for the wider viewership.
Do you have any examples of in a piece of creative that its goal was specifically to broaden someone's audience, like to find another target? I was thinking a story like Stuffies when we did the Grand List.
Go back to Stuffies.
I think one of the brands that has been famous for leaning into their core audience, but actually doing that as a way to reach a broader audience, is Harley Davidson. They created what's known as the campfire approach, and they speak really deeply into the spirit of that Harley wearing leather jacket, bicycle rider, but really using that as an appeal to a wider audience who will never wear the leather jacket, but loves the idea that they would.
Well, and isn't it true that all of Harley's marketing, you'll never see them use actually a person on the Harley?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. They want you to put yourself in the ad. And so, yeah, they don't actually put real people in there.
Final question. This episode has been longer than I expected. I should have known that the three of us would fill up a lot of air talking about reach. Last question to close us out. Speaking of reach, imagine you had the power to send one tweet from any account in the world that everyone on X, formerly Twitter, will see. Whose account would you choose, and what would you tweet to achieve maximum reach?
All right, well, I would go after someone who's universally loved. Everybody loves a good Jerry Seinfeld quote. And so I would use Jerry Seinfeld and saying something about, we want to bring happiness to the world. So something like, laughter really is the best medicine unless you have a rash. Then you should buy some cream.
You would tweet that from Jerry Seinfeld's account?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right. So that's what Rob would do with unlimited power on X. Ange, what have you got?
Mine would probably be something having to do with the power of the mind. I'm a big power of the mind person, so I don't have it written out like Snoop Rob does. And just for sheer numbers, I'd have to go with Elon Musk's account. Love him or hate him, I think all of the followers could likely benefit from the tweet.
How about you, Elena?
I had trouble with this one. I had an idea that was more marketing related if we're trying to increase the reach of marketing effectiveness. So my idea was to send a tweet from NASA's account. They actually have like 80 million people following them. They're one of the biggest accounts on X, which I didn't expect. I thought that we could launch Byron Sharp into space, live stream it, and the whole theme could be marketing isn't rocket science, and he could give like marketing effectiveness speeches. I'm sure the general internet would hate this, but I would love it. It'd be more for me.
That specific audience would really react to that, right?
They'd be like, what is going on with NASA's account?
That's a whole campaign. That's way beyond a tweet. I love it.
That's it for this episode of The Marketing Architects. We'd like to thank Ayana Klaphaki for producing the show and Taylor De Los Reyes for editing. You can connect with us on LinkedIn, and if you find the show valuable, please leave us a rating and review. And if you'd like to hear more from us, subscribe to our weekly email newsletter. It's built for marketers seeking research-first analysis of the latest trends. You can go to marketingarchitects.com/newsletter to subscribe. Now go forth and build great marketing.
I cannot believe it. You asked me that follow-up question, and I'm like, why the hell is she asking me a follow-up question?
I do have the right to ask you follow-up questions.
Yeah, but you put me on the spot.
You're so spoiled on this podcast. What is she doing asking me a question?
Clearly, I'm using too much ChatGPT.